folks, we're going to start in about 1 minute. 1 minute. All right, if everybody could take their seats, please. Peabody TV, we good? Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. This meeting is being broadcast on PATV, and most likely will be rebroadcast again on PATV and RCN, just so everybody knows that. So this is our second community meeting. My name is Joel Sassel. I'm the current Ward 5 councilor, and the purpose tonight is to allow residents of Peabody to see the most up-to-date proposal from the developers Trammell Crow Residential and engage in a question and answer when they are finished with their presentation. Since we have so many new faces in the room, I just want to kind of give a brief synopsis of where we are in the progress and the process. So meeting started approximately a little bit over a year ago between the city and Trammell Crow. They engaged in various meetings with both myself, the mayor, community development, Kurt Ballavance and his team. And then in October of 2020, we had our first neighborhood meeting. It was primarily with direct abutters, and the reason for that was due to the strict COVID-19 guidelines. We're only allowed to have 25 people. So we really strictly stayed within the direct abutters on Cardigan, Winona, Anderson. Primarily that was the area. We've continued conversations, and just yesterday we had a meeting at the mayor's office to review the latest information, which will be shared here this evening. Part of this process is to try and correct any mistakes and misunderstandings. Social media, quite frankly, can both help in her communications, and sometimes there's mistruths and there's accurate information. The one page that I post on a regular basis will be Peabody, Mass. 128 Newbury Street 40B proposal. And I'll say that again, Peabody, Mass. 128 Newbury Street 40B proposal. That's where I post most of my information, although I will sometimes add to other pages, campaign pages, things of that nature, but that's where I will be posting the official information that I get. One of the things I do want to clear up is that I have not agreed to anything. As late as yesterday, I still saw a post up that said the Ward 5 councilor is on board. So that is a misfact, it's a misrepresentation. I don't think it's fair to me. I'll leave it at that. I see my role here tonight is to be a conduit of information, hence tonight's meeting. I'm not here to try and convince anybody to agree to what they want to see, to not agree. I understand that this proposal and a project such as this brings out many different opinions, concerns, and I respect that. That being stated, as I've stated to many of you previously, this situation has been with us for over 15 years. And tonight, I want everyone to be assured that you'll have the opportunity to voice your opinions without any threat of harassment. Please be respectful to everyone, as some of you in this room have suffered through this more than others. In closing, many of us are neighbors and residents of the city of Peabody, and we're just trying to do what's best, but I understand that people's opinions may not be the same. But we'll do our best to have all of your questions and concerns answered this evening or at a later date if they can't be answered tonight. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Betancourt, who has to leave a little bit early to attend a school committee meeting, but he wanted to say a few words and maybe we'll even take a few questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Sasslaw. Great to be with all of you, and as Joel said, I have to leave a little bit early. I have to get over to a school committee meeting. We got a couple of important items going on there, and but I really wanted to be here today because this is important for all of you. It's important for that whole area. And I just still can't believe that it's been 15 years. I was on the city council at the time when the presentation was to the council that there was going to be the Brunswick zone. And some of you may remember that. It was going to be bowling alley and I think laser tag and all these type of different things. It was going to be a family-oriented place, and of course there were going to be the 12 or 13 homes that were going to be in the back end. And I remember how exciting it was, and I voted for that, to approve that permit, and I thought, great, something's going to happen there to be a nice location for everybody. And then 15 years later, this is where we are. They came in and completely cleared the area, which was disgraceful, and never get over that. And I know all of you who have to deal with that every day have never gotten over that, but it's caused significant stormwater problems for the city. It's just a bad visual, and it's just been terrible for 15 years. And I've been subjected to a lot of promises and assurances, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to make this area better in this way, and just nothing has ever come to light. And certainly in being in the position as mayor, I'm getting a lot of that. Particularly recently, there's been a lot of development in the city proposals. Most of it has been housing in the last couple of years. And we're dealing with a number of 40B projects here in the city, and I'm happy to speak about that as to where some of those stand and what the process is. But certainly I've met a number of real terrible potential developers, and then I've also ran across some that I have some confidence in. Trammell Crow, I don't know them personally. I've met with them. We met, as Joel said, back in March. That was I was looking through my notes. That was our first meeting right before COVID hit and changed everything. And at the time, there was a proposal for 300 units, 5 stories, Winona Street access. And I just said, I don't want to hear any more. That's just never going to work. It's not going to fly. I don't even want to hear anymore. We met again in July, and at the time it was 250 units. And at the time there was also access under Winona. And I just said, again, way too much, nothing that I could support. That's too much for the neighborhood, Winona Street. It'd be too much to take on in that particular area. And then I know there was a community meeting. We met yesterday afternoon. It's the first time I've met with and spoken to Trammell Crow in several months. And I was looking forward to the meeting. I knew tonight was going to happen, and I wanted to kind of get an understanding of where they were. They're going to be presenting. They have some modifications, some changes. Right now, I am not in favor of the proposal, but I'm not against it. I've learned, being in this position, that it's always the best case scenario is to try to work with the developer, work with the neighbors, and see if an agreement could be reached. The difference is there's a friendly 40B and then a regular 40B. Because the city of Peabody right now does not have 10% in affordable housing, we're very close, but we do not at this point have 10% affordable housing. That means that a developer could bypass local approvals, bypass city council, bypass planning board, and go right to the state for approval. City of Peabody used to be in great shape when it came to 10% in terms of our affordable housing, and then what happened was about 15 years ago, you may recall, Brooksby Village was built, and that was about 2,000 units. And also the Dearborn Apartments, which were on Dearborn Street, you can see it from the highway, those were 440 units. Both of those properties did not have to do, one because of money being paid to the city, did not have to do any affordable units. So we went from being way above 10%, and then all of a sudden those 2,500 units come on, and we're significantly below. In the last few years, we've been trying to build up our number to get back to 10%, so we don't have 40Bs being brought forward to the city of Peabody. Right now we have 3 that are brought forth, and Trammell Crow has brought forth this proposal as well. So I came here with an open mind to try to listen to all of you to see what you think of the proposal. I would have to sign on. If it's a friendly 40B, I sign a letter of support. I'm certainly not at that point, but I am willing to listen. Trammell Crow, I did check with some other communities that Trammell Crow have worked, and they have a good reputation as being people that you can work with, which is very promising. Because as I said, sometimes we have that, other times we don't, and we've gotten burned in the city. Because you want to believe people, certainly, whenever that comes along. But I'm here to try to answer questions, here to learn, here to see what some of the concerns are, and to see if we can work with Trammell Crow to make this a project that could potentially work for the neighborhood in the area. I know the area very well. I used to live not too far from there, right off of Lake Street, and I know the area very well. I know the traffic that can go down Winona Street, and I know the impact large development and traffic could have on the area. So again, willing to listen, happy to answer any questions. I don't want to jump in front, Councilor Sasslaw, but if there are a couple of questions now, I'd be happy to answer them about Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B, where things like that stand. Right now, they are all in the Zoning Board of Appeals, those 3 proposals, and they're going to be going through the Zoning Board of Appeal process. And then ultimately, there will be some decisions that come from that. But a 40B project can, again, bypass City Council, Mayor approval, and go right to the state for approval. And the way things stand right now, the state has been very aggressive, and they've been really pushing housing. There's been developments that have been proposed that I thought would never get through some scrutiny, and they were approved within a matter of weeks. In flood zone areas, in very highly congested areas. So I always want to try to see if there's a way that we can work and come up with some sort of reasonable conclusion or something that could be a compromise in some regard. So that's what I'm here for, and happy to answer any questions. Anybody have any questions at this point? Yes, sir.
You're saying the state could just do this and we got no say.
So
That's it. They could just say, we're going to pass it, and we got no say in it at all.
So what happens is, yep, that's the question of the day. And what's been happening since we've been dealing with these 40Bs, and we had one on Oak Street, which is over behind the Elks property. I think many of you may know that property. We have one on King Street, which was the site of the old J.B. Thomas Hospital. And now we have one on Endicott Street, which is pretty much across the street from Farnham Park, those 3 areas. We have pending 40Bs. So what those 3 operators did was they bypassed the city ordinances, city council, mayor approvals, planning board approval, and went right to the state. That's Department of Housing and Community Development. It's Mass Housing. They review all affordable housing projects. They, on each of the past 3, have approved those in pretty short order, and surprisingly so. I feel like we've put some real strong arguments as to why those proposals and those developments did not fit in that area. A lot of it was size concerns, density concerns, traffic concerns, parking concerns, flood mitigation concerns, but those were approved. Now we're really close to the 10%, and we would be able to take that away. I can't make that announcement yet. We're not at the 10%, which is frustrating, but we are very close. But as it stands right now, yes, the state would receive the application, and they would then make a decision based on whether it fits into that area. Then it goes to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We do have some authority in the Zoning Board of Appeals to put some certain requirements and restrictions and potentially try to work with the developer. But the Zoning Board of Appeals can be appealed by the developer, and then it goes back to the state, which is, again, another frustrating piece to this.
So you're going to reach 10% on the other 2 projects? Can they do more than 2 projects in a year, 40Bs?
So there's some conflicting information on that. And right now, we have 3, which is our max that we can have in the pipeline. This isn't one of the 3.
It's not one.
Yep, this is not one of the 3. Oak Street is 1, King Street is 2, and Endicott Street is 3. Those 3 are all at different stages in the review of the Zoning Board of Appeals. There's potential to move fast on those. There's also, I foresee that there's still a great deal of deliberation that needs to take place. So right now, we have the right to ask for safe harbor. Safe harbor. You may have heard that term. If we are over the 10%, if there's too much development, a certain number of units in one particular calendar year, you referred to 2 projects. I believe it's 300 units that can't be done more than 1 year. And we're right around those levels with all these projects that are taking place. Between Endicott, Oak, and King, we're looking at 280 units. And I have done friendly 40Bs in the past. I did one behind Sonic. There's 60 units that are going to be built behind Sonic. You may have seen some trucks mobilizing there. I felt that was a good opportunity to do a friendly 40B. And I also signed off on a friendly 40B over on Farm Avenue, over near the DPW building, up in that area. It's 116 units that move forward with a friendly 40B. So I have thought that there'd be opportunities for friendly 40Bs. but then all the 3 that are now in front of us, I've been in strong opposition to. And it just depends on what works for the neighborhood, works for the area, with all those concerns, like all of you have. And I've received a number of letters, probably from many of you that are here, very well written, very powerful, articulate emails expressing your concern about traffic, about parking, about water runoff, just density concerns in general, and all very real and very legitimate. I just want to try to see if there is a way that could possibly reach to some sort of compromise and something that could fit. Without questioning, something is going to happen there. I would have loved it to be 12, 13 units, big, beautiful houses. The people that we've reached out to, and we've tried to get people involved, they just tell us that that project is not affordable right now with building costs. And I don't know if that's the case. But it seems that that is a project that we just can't seem to generate any interest in doing. And that's what's brought us here today. So Trammell Crow, at least, I'm very pleased that they're willing to listen, work with us, have these community meetings. Other developers have just refused. Trammell Crow is willing to do this, which is very helpful. And again, I'm here to see if there's some way this can work, and if we can come up with some sort of compromise. But I'm certainly not in favor at this point, and I'm interested to see how this goes and to hear from all of you. If we don't reach some sort of agreement as to what can happen here, then the date that we have to respond to mass housing with our concerns or opposition or support, anything of that, is May 7th. I've tried to get that date out in emails to people, but we have until May 7th to put forth all of our concerns, all of our opinions on this project. Submitted on May 7th, and then they would come forward with some sort of decision, typically 60, 90 days out as to where things stand. Could be a little quicker, could be a little later. But in terms of time frames, that's what we're looking at. So I'm here again, happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
So with Farm Ave being approved, once it gets approved by the state, would we be 6 units over?
So Farm Ave was approved by the state. It went to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals met. They approved the project. It doesn't become official where we can use the number of units, which is 116, towards our 10% until the appeal period passes, which is 20 days. We haven't reached that yet. If there's no appeal, then those units will count. And we would be at 10%, but it'd be very close. So that's kind of where we stand right now. If somebody does appeal, an abutter, if somebody does appeal on Farm Ave, then it is held until that appeal is decided. So they wouldn't count until either there's no appeal or until the appeal would be decided. So, yes, sir.
What board or court does that appeal go to?
So, let me think this through, make sure I say this right. So there is, and Jack, you can maybe.
HAC, the Housing Appeals Board.
So a decision based on an appeal, so let's just say that it's appealed by a neighbor on Farm Ave. It goes to the Housing Appeals Court. I mean, that's a judge trial on evidence type of court. So that's where it would go. And it could be, depending on right now, it seems like the courts are a little slow because of everything that's going on in the world. That could range from a couple of months to several months. Yes, sir.
Is that the Superior Court?
So it is. It's not the Superior Court. It's a state. It's a kind of an offshoot of land court. It's just a specific court that deals with these specific issues. Yes.
It is a court. It's not an administrative proceeding. It's a court proceeding.
Yep, you know your stuff, and that's why I wanted to make sure. But to me, my understanding is it's a full evidentiary hearing.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes.
Trammell Crow actually own this property now?
I don't believe they own the property. No. Yes, I think there's a couple of current owners, Marchese, Caruso. I think there's a couple of owners on the property. But my understanding is Trammell Crow does not own the property at this point. Yes?
Weren't they the original owners when this whole thing began?
Well, there was, again, it was kind of a hodgepodge of owners that came together. Marchese was the big one, and he's the one that came in and, destroy that, but there was others, there was yes, he owns a piece of it.
And then he, now he's gonna,
Yeah, he's never done anything with the property besides destroy it. Yes,
Question, please. This is only in the discussion stage, okay? Nothing really has been done in writing or anything. We're gonna meet our 10% quota, perhaps, with Farm Road, okay? And we'll definitely meet it with Oak, and what's the other one?
there's Oak, King, and Endicott.
Okay, King. So why do we even address this as 40B? When we're going to meet our quota anyway with 40B before this even comes out. So why should we treat this as a friendly 40B?
It seems like they're trying to get around it.
Well, first, it's not a friendly 40B, but the only thing I'm not sure of, and it would become a legal question, is if they are, by already having filed with Mass Housing, if they would be grandfathered in.
Okay, that's the question.
Yep, and I do not know the answer to that.
So we don't even know.
No, we don't.
It's going to be 40B at this point.
Yep. But it's only a friendly 40B if I was to sign off on it and submit it to, we're not anywhere near that. Yes, sir?
Have they filed a friendly 40B with the state?
No. No. Well, I'm sorry, let me make sure, they have filed to Mass Housing their intention for this project. There's, friendly 40B would go down a different track than what they're going down right now. If I agreed to a friendly 40B, they would be able to take this down a different track, which would make it a much quicker process. Is it just, right now, it's just a 40B? Just a regular 40B? Yes, sir?
When was the May 7th date decided on? The date that we, you know? And my basic question is, if the May 7th date was decided long ago, then why is this meeting so close to it with such, little time to spare?
So the filing was on May 7th, March 7th. And it's 30 days. We were able to get an extension of an additional 30 days, the city, in writing, extending it from April 7th to May 7th. Yeah. Yes, sir. Oh, Mr. Titlebaum, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you have 3 projects in the pipeline. Why, and if this is filed on March 7th, what about those other projects? How many projects are in the pipeline right now, in addition to this one?
The only projects that are in the pipeline right now are the 3 that I mentioned. Oak Street, which has been in Zoning Board of Appeals actually for well over a year. King Street, which has also been in front of the ZBA for, could be a year. And Endicott Street just went into the Zoning Board of Appeals. I think it was received last meeting.
So is it 3 active in the pipeline, or 3 plus whatever you already have?
My understanding, it's 3 active. However, with this one being filed, again, I don't know if this is grandfathered in.
but what about Farm Avenue and the 60 units behind Sonic?
Those, yep, good question. Sonic has already been approved. The construction has started. Those 60 units count for us. They count once the Zoning Board of Appeals approves them and the appeal period passes. So Sonic has already gone beyond that. Those 60 units already count, and construction is starting very soon. Farm Ave,
When is the last appeal date?
a week from today. Yes, sir.
Could you maybe explain what actions the city is taking to find out all this information about whether, it's grandfathered, not grandfathered, or, how is the city responding to this?
Yep. Now, this is, sadly, besides COVID, this has probably been the biggest issue that we've had over the past year. And I feel like every new proposed development brings forth different legal questions to us. We did hire a consultant to work specifically with the Zoning Board of Appeals, an outside consultant, just to deal with 40Bs. And again, those processes are ongoing. Mr. Beals is not here. And then we do have our city solicitor team that is very much involved in that. I know those issues are being looked at. I just don't have an answer yet on the grandfathering question. I did want to say that I'm going to probably be leaving here in about 20 minutes. Chris Ryder, City Hall Chief of Staff, is going to be here the whole time, and he's certainly very knowledgeable on where things stand. And if he can't get the information, I'd like to be in touch, and I can answer those questions for you as we go along. But next week is a big day, next Tuesday.
Are there currently any appeals on that property that you
No.
know?
Yes, sir.
Trammell Crow putting the cart before the horse by going to housing and just throwing everything in and see what will stick in case the other ones don't work out. I mean, it looks like we're fodder for the cannon here. That's what it looks like. It's like if they say it's a go, then the city has no qualms. You can't do nothing. And these are all single-family homes in the neighborhood.
Oh, yes.
What that's gonna do to the values of those single-family homes, once you start parading 400 or 500 cars through there a day, is gonna have a significant impact on people's value of their houses and their quality of life. I mean, there's a lot of things that go with this. Is there a fence around the back of this so people don't come trooping through my neighborhood?
Well, let me just say this. I know based on the meeting in October and discussions we had, there's been a number of changes that they've made to their proposal. I don't want to jump ahead of that, but I think a lot of those questions are going to be answered in terms of Winona and some of the surrounding area. So yeah, they have made changes. They have been, they did come to me early last year, so I know this is something that they have been working on. I don't know, I'm not sure if this was thought out in that way, but it does seem like a bunch of things are hitting us at one time.
Are the other projects part of their venue as well?
I'm sorry?
Are the other 40B projects part of Trammell?
No, this is the first time Trammell Crow has done business in our community.
But you did the one in Saugus, right? You guys do the one in Saugus? Looks like the same building.
Yeah,
Hotel. Looks like the same one, it's 40B, same.
yeah, they're gonna, in their presentation, they're gonna have a number of ones that they've done in other cities. I don't think Saugus was one of them.
Looks like the same building.
Yep. So, but yeah, I think the presentation will answer some questions, and I know we'll provide a lot of the information. Yes?
There's been a lot of research done about the contaminated water in that area that goes down into my neighborhood, done by REMSERV and the EPA. What happens with that when there's development?
They would have to receive permits from those state agencies. Water is certainly a big one that they have to obtain proper permits for before they can do any work. Both from the city and from the state. So that's a fair question, but that has to be done before anything can happen. All right, yes, sir.
No, I have another question. I mean, it looks beautiful. I think it's fantastic, and I think it's great that we develop the property. It needs to be developed. However, how can Winona possibly handle that much traffic? Now, if they have a plan for it.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear it.
They have a plan.
They have a plan. What, are they gonna raise the road or something? I don't know. I'm just saying. Hey, let's call a spade a spade.
Let's go to them, hear the presentation, but I don't think that's what they're gonna propose. All right, everyone, thank you, and I'm around, and please reach out to me, email. This is an important issue. I know how important this is to all of you in the neighborhood, so we're gonna try to do the best we can.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things I wanted to jot down before we turn over to them. I'm going to have one more speaker real quickly. One of the things that Trammell Crow did want to do about probably two months ago is they did want to reach out to the individual abutters on Cardigan who abut the property because there were some issues regarding property lines and things of that nature. And I did ask them not to do that until after this meeting tonight. I did not want anyone to think that anyone was going behind anyone's back. I didn't want one neighbor to think that they were talking to them. They weren't talking to the other neighbor. So I just want to throw that right out there, that if you are an abutting neighbor and they reach out to you, there's a reason why, and that conversation is between you and them. It's not anything that I need to be a part of. Also, just to answer the question, one of the other developments that they have done that's probably the closest to here is in Billerica. I would suggest that you might want to take a ride down there and look at it. Also, two other major points is there was some question online about school capacity and things of that nature. They're going to address some of that, but I did want everyone in the room to know, especially who have children, that the city as a whole, before this project, right now as we speak, the school committee is looking at redistricting. Has nothing to do with this project, just as a whole, and obviously that would come into play as all these develops come up online. And lastly, There was one other thing. Oh, you know, Mr. Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's important to put it out there. One of the other issues why we're having this meeting is because what's going to happen is if we go above the 10%, we just went through a census. So because we went through a census, what's going to happen is whatever our number is today, it's going to rise. It's going to go higher. And what's going to also happen is some units are going to fall off the 40B housing. There could be certain leases that expire, certain things that are going on. I can't speak to that. It's more of a procedural matter. Kurt Bellavant can speak to that. But we know that we're going to fall, even with Farm Ave, we're going to fall beneath. So what we're trying to do is try and get above, because I can tell you this, all the councilors who were on the city council, the mayor, the one thing we all agree on is we are tired of having the hammer over our head, the threat of 40Bs. I'm tired of it. I think the other councilors can speak on their behalf, and I think the mayor has expressed that. So that's the other reason why we're engaging this tonight, to let you know that. Lastly, I'm going to ask Mr. McCarthy. Joe McCarthy was the former Ward 5 councilor who actually was in office when Huntington Woods was built. And that had some growing pains as well. He's going to have 5 minutes to share a little bit about that, and then we're going to go into the presentation. Thank you.
Hi, my name's John McCarthy. I live at 1 Pierce Road. I'm a direct abutter to this project. I just want to tell you about, I was council 40 years ago when we did Huntington Woods, and the neighbors didn't want anything there, whatever. We had a number of meetings with them, and I got the developer to cut the number of units by 40%, but he made them bigger so he could sell them for more, and it kind of mitigated his costs there. We told him to put two entrances on Lake Street instead of the one they had, and an emergency entrance on Route 1. So we couldn't get emergency vehicles in there, so the two entrances kind of kept the traffic off of Lake Street. But those things have held their value. They go for 60 to 75% of the value of the single-family homes around them. So what I'm saying is, something's going to go here. A good project, if you work with the neighbors and work with the city, it can be a good project for everybody. So we need to get the details. At that time, it was 1981. Prop 2.5 had just passed the November before, so the city had cut, jobs, firefighters, cops, teachers, and the city really needed the money. So it was a good project to get through at the time. The question I have here is, my next door neighbor at 1 Pierce Road, he's right in the corner of Corral. There is a road coming out the back there, out of this project. I'd like to know what's gonna happen with that, and I'll get that when we have the presentation. Yes.
Sorry, but I don't think you can even compare Huntington Woods to this project. Huntington Woods is all condos, they're owner occupied. Also, it's hitting in between all these, you don't even know where the roads are. This is right on Route 1, and you're talking about a project.
Well, we didn't take the traffic out to Route 1. They figured it out 3 miles down the road at the Hilltop. And see the Hilltop project where they have the commercial front? They got big residential units right behind it. And the access on Route 1. They figured it out. Now, what I'm talking about, I'm not really trying to do that. I'm talking about the developer and the city working with the neighbors to hear their concerns and get some type of a project.
But our concerns are going to be heard.
Yes.
We're not just going to be talking into.
Well, I hope so. You got a good lawyer to deal with, Jack Kelty, but I have no idea about who these developers are. Yes, ma'am.
I have lived on Forensic Road for 53 years, so I was totally involved in the Huntington Woods project and all the committee. I could write the book of what happened. And one of the things that I learned, it was unfortunate, because that was such a beautiful, we're not saving anything for conservation. And that
sadly told something's going there. So we worked very, very diligently and to make this thing the best it could be. But what was proposed in the beginning was such horrible, horrible.
Oh, correct. That's why I hit the setbacks doubled. You can't even see it now. I didn't live there then. I lived in Jordan Road.
And what we did, we protected you, because he's my neighbor and I know
Yeah.
where he lives. The Forenza Road is not an egress to that property. And I thought Corral was part of that. I might be wrong.
No, there's a road there.
There's a road, but I thought that they had said that it could not be an egress to.
Oh, that's what I want to hear tonight from them, that it's not.
Because that is, first of all, a travesty.
Correct.
People on Winona Street could never, ever have, we did not have to deal. The topography and everything was much more conducive that we could work it. I don't know how the heck you're gonna work this one. And the other thing is, you're gonna turn, going out to Route 1, a game of Russian roulette.
All right, folks, just one last thing. I do want to recognize that you folks can know who your elected officials in the room tonight. So if you want to talk to them afterwards, if you could just raise your hand, stand up maybe. Ward 1 Council Craig Welton. Ward 6 Council Mark O'Neill, back. Council at Large Ryan Melville's here. Council at Large John Turco. Council at Large Tom Rosignol. Council at Large Ann Manning Martin. And once again, Chris Ryder you met. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mark Baranski and Andy Hutun from Trammell Crow.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. I'm sure there's other things you'd probably prefer to do on a Tuesday, so we really appreciate your time. For those of you that are back for a second time with us, thank you very much for coming back after the October meeting as well. My name's Andy Huntoon with Trammell Crow Residential, and this is Mark Baranski. And we just kind of want to run through and try to answer a lot of questions that we think a number of you probably have about what the proposal is that's on the table here, so that you can have the information about what we're working on here. Sorry. Ari, can you help me out? It worked earlier. Did the whole thing reset? You might just have to push the button.
Okay, we're gonna have to.
Okay, I'll take the pointer. Yeah. Oh. Sorry, thanks. All right. Computers, right? There we go. So just a little bit about the firm, and then I'll skip to the project because that's frankly what everybody cares about. But Trammell Crow Residential, it's a family-owned company based out of Dallas. We've been in business for about 44 years now, I guess. We build all across the country. So we've got 13 offices all around the country. So it's a big company, but it's a family-owned company. Harlan is the gentleman that owns the firm. And we build housing. It's really all we do. We don't do anything else. So, we build all different types of housing, and we try to build housing that we think is appropriate for the communities that we're working in partnership with the constituents in those communities. As far as what are we talking about here, this is 128 Peabody Street, which generally refers to kind of all of this land that was clear-cut by Richie Marchese 14 or 15 years ago. The portion that we're here to talk about tonight is this yellow boxed-in portion here, which is the primary portion of the site, and then the driveway that goes out to Route 1, which is this long arm that sticks out down that way. And we'll walk a little bit through more kind of how that all comes together. The mayor mentioned a little about kind of the history of the site, but these pictures were just pulled off of Google satellite photos that you can get online. So this was what the site looked like in September of 2006. And then by July of 2007, this is what the site looked like. So somewhere 14 years ago, Richie Marchese, who used to own this piece of land that we're working on, went out and bulldozed the whole thing and knocked everything down. At about the same time, he had it approved to put a single-family subdivision in there, and it sat there and nothing has happened on it for 14 years. So, for those of you that are in the area, and especially for the direct abutters, there's a significant amount of problems that the treatment of this site has created that have directly impacted the neighbors in the immediate area. So again, we threw a drone up over it so that we could get some accurate photos. But I mean, this is what it looks like today. There's property damage that has happened to neighbors due to water runoff. When this site was clear cut and all the trees were cut, it was also stripped of all the topsoil. And so there's really not much that can grow there. And so when it rains, in a light rain, it's okay. But in a heavy rain, the water just sheets off the property. And since the property runs downhill generally to the north in the direction of Winona Street, all the water just floods that direction. On windy days, it's just kind of a big dirt site. So it's not great the way it is today, and it's a disservice to the community what happened 14 years ago that people have had to live with for a decade and a half. It's really not fair. A couple more photos. This is the pool hall building on the backside here. It's pretty much just flooded at all times at this point. This is looking off of Winona Street at that little entrance to where the residential neighborhood would have been. There's a chain link fence there and a little water pit to try to somehow mitigate the runoff of the water. So that's kind of what you've got there today. Our view of this is, we see an opportunity here to try to kind of correct some wrongs that were done and to work collectively with the neighborhood, with your elected officials, the professional staff in the town, to try to come up with a complete solution for the entire site. And so, the piece that we're working on buying is 7.7 acres, but there's another 9.6 acres of land there that's been clear cut, has no stormwater retention, and is just a mess. So you've got just a little over 17 acres of land there that something needs to happen to fix it so that some of those problems that cause property damage to neighbors can get taken care of. So as we look at it, part of the opportunity that we see is there's an opportunity to repair the damage to the site and the resulting damage that happens to the neighborhood and really to beautify the entire place. Massachusetts, Eastern Massachusetts and Metro Boston, we need more housing in general. Places for people to live that they're newer, clean, affordable. And there's a lot of nice housing already, but all of our kids need places to be able to go as well when they grow up. Whoops, sorry, I jumped ahead. We'll show you kind of from a dollars and cents standpoint, the money that would flow to the city. And as far as process, it's why we've reached out to your civic leaders. It's why we're here in October. It's why we're here tonight. The meeting here tonight has nothing to do with the 40B process. It's just we want to talk to you. We want to tell you what it is that we'd like to do. We want to hear your feedback. It's why we're here in October. It's why we've made changes to the development plan based off the feedback. And we can walk through some of that as well. But the process is important to us. We want to make sure that this is a good project that meets as many needs as possible. A couple of other things that we've done recently. This is one down in Kingston off of Route 3 on the South Shore that we're under construction on now. This is the Kingston Collection Mall here. This is the old Sears building and the adjacent parking lots. And that Sears has been empty for a couple of years. The mall is going to die if something doesn't happen there. And there's a significant amount of tax revenue that the town depends on there. And so we went in and we were able to put together a plan to cut down the Sears, take this parking lot and buy it, and build housing, plant a lot of trees and grass, and really dress up the entrance to the mall here, which is going to give this mall a fighting chance at survival. So we think it's a pretty creative solution to what was a local problem down in Kingston. Joel mentioned this one. This is a property that we built in Billerica a couple of years ago up off of Route 3A. I'd welcome you to drive up there, the website. But this is an aerial photo of kind of what this property looks like in the residential neighborhood there. There's a big courtyard pool area, plantings, trees. everything else. And kind of here's another angle. This is from the south looking north, kind of across the property. Again, grilling stations, seating areas, trying to put a lot of life into the property and as much green space as we can fit. Within the communities, we build large, we call them clubhouses, but large areas with business centers, game rooms, pool tables, dartboards, work from home, Wi-Fi stations. There's a fitness center in the properties. And the whole goal is we want to build communities so that people can engage, get to know their neighbors, make friends, build roots, and have places to do stuff. So, that's kind of what they look like. Here's another one down in Rentham. This is at Route 495 and Route 1, kind of on the northwest corner there. So this was a property that we finished up a couple of years ago as well. And again, just a couple of pictures there. From an approach standpoint, again, it's why we're here tonight. We want to talk to everybody. We want to have this be a dialogue. We want to have this be a process. We've, as you've heard, we've been talking with the mayor and some other folks in town for about a year now, trying to figure out what would make sense. I think we've tried to listen pretty carefully on what doesn't make sense. So there's been a number of changes to what we're proposing. We were here in mid-October, I guess, and it was a much smaller crowd then. I think at the time we were only allowed to have 25 people in a room, and that was in that kind of fall surge of COVID. So thank you for those of you that were brave enough to come out with us back in October. The mayor alluded to this. Our original program, wow, these look a lot smaller, not on a computer screen, sorry. But we originally had talked to the mayor and his staff about doing a 5-story property that would be 300 units. We went back in with a revised program of 4 stories at 240 units, and currently we're at 4 stories with 220 units. And we'll kind of walk through a little bit more about what the program is as we get through this. Originally, we wanted to have our driveway on Winona Street, and so this is where that chain link fence is right now, and that would have been the primary access to the site. At the time, the easement that we had needed to go out to Route 1 didn't quite work. So, we listened, we got pushback. During the meeting when we were here in October, we kind of said, all right, well, we hear you and we just won't do it. We'll fix it. And so now this is an emergency access only. The fire department's going to need a way to get in and out of the site that's not on Route 1. We'll be able to put subject to the chief's approval, which I think we'll get, frankly, we'll be able to put some kind of barricade or fence or breakaway gate here so that, really only emergency vehicles can get in and out of there. So for the project that we're talking about, unless it's a fire truck or a police cruiser coming in, there is absolutely no way for any cars to get in and out onto Winona Street. And that was something that we heard pretty clearly when we were here in October. And, frankly, at that meeting, we said, all right, well, we agree with you. Let's just figure out how to do it. So it took us a little bit to go get the easement sorted out, but we did. So that leads me to easements, which is probably not the most exciting topic for anybody, but when you're talking about land, easements are pretty important. And so there's a few of them. I want to walk you through what they are so that you know specifically what they are and then also what they aren't. So we've tried to label these, and you'll have to excuse my homemade graphics, but the ones in yellow are utility easements, and so you've got one that runs behind the dress shop and the donut shop here, and that's for below-grade utilities. You've got the Route 1 access easement, which is in red here. There's another underground utility easement that wraps around on the southwest corner of the site here. And then there's what we have, what we call a beautification easement. And that's going to take a little bit more explanation. But that's pretty much all the rest of the 9 acres of land that we won't own. So I'll walk you through these in a little bit more detail, and we can come back to this. There may be questions on this later. So again, we've got 7.7 acres. There's another 9.6, so there's 17.3 acres. So we were able to cut a deal. It's recorded. It's a little hard to find, frankly, on the Registry of Deeds, but it's there. So, if you look up on the Registry of Deeds, you can find it. It exists. It's recorded, and it's applicable only to us. And so it's not transferable. It just goes to us for this project. But basically what the beautification easement does is there's the pool hall building. It's not in great shape. The lower level's flooded. It's been in that state for at least a couple of years, I think. So it gives us the right, subject to a couple of restrictions, to demolish that building if it's not rehabilitated and maintained by the current owner. So we have a legal right to go onto his property if he doesn't clean it up and make it prettier and bulldoze it, level it, and it's gone. And kind of get rid of that building, which, I wouldn't want to go into it. I don't know that it's safe, and it's certainly not very attractive. The other thing it gives us the right to do, again, property that we don't own or won't own, is there's that huge retention pond that's kind of behind the dress shop now that was built on the front portion of the site. You know, and so in order to get rid of that retention pond, the only way to do it is before you get rid of it, you've got to go build a stormwater system on that site to be able to handle the rainwater so that it has somewhere to go. Our civil engineer is here. He's going to talk about stormwater a little bit later in the presentation. But so we have a right to go onto that site, put in below grade stormwater drainage system so that the water has a place to go. We'll put the water back into the ground. The city of Peabody's engineer has approval rights over that system. And then once that system's built, we can fill that pond in and it's gone. And once that pond's filled in, then we have the legal right to go onto these other people's property and landscape the whole thing, you know, and it's probably just going to be grass and it'll be like meadow seed that we would plant out there. But, you know, you've got 17.3 acres right now that's been in a bad shape for 14, 15 years. And I still don't know how we pull it off, but we're able to put this deal together with these guys to go on their property, knock over their building, get rid of their pond, solve their stormwater problems, and then landscape the thing. The other thing that we were able to get out of them, and this was the harder one, is we were able to get them to agree to use restrictions on things that they can't do on their property. And so those parcels of land are zoned, was it general business, Jack? Is that the right zoning designation? Business 1, I don't know, one of those. Regional Business 1, RB1, I think. There's a number of things that are allowed there. You can build self-storage facilities on the southbound lane of Route 1. You can do adult entertainment establishments. There's a whole laundry list of stuff that's doable. We've actually now got a deed restriction on the site so that you can't do adult entertainment, you can't do gambling, any kind of drug paraphernalia you can't do. Flea markets are out, funeral mortuaries are out, firing ranges are out. Anything that creates excessive noise, and that's loosely defined on purpose because we don't want a lot of noise next to a residential neighborhood. Circuses, carnivals, those kind of traveling road shows, dry cleaning. That one's important because dry cleaning is notorious for chemicals that can get out of the buildings. Fireworks, assembly plants, closeout stores, those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of stuff that could go on those sites now that won't be able to go on those sites once we were to start construction on this residential parcel. So it cleans up that whole thing. It gets rid of a bunch of stuff that can't be done there anymore as a deed restriction that takes those types of establishments that could be built, and it basically makes it so that in that neighborhood they can no longer get built, and that runs with the land. So, so that's what we mean by beautification easement. The Route 1 access easement, so Winona Street is right here and runs kind of up and down on the screen off to the right. The donut shop and the dress shop are right here. The restaurant's over here. The little cemetery's here. So it kind of runs in where that entrance is right now. The pond that we would fill in is going to be right here, and then it goes back to the site. And so it's, depending on where you are, it's 30 or 40 feet wide. This is permanently recorded. It can't be moved. And so this is the driveway access for this property. And again, the side access off to the side on Winona is explicitly for emergency vehicles. For utilities, these also show up. So I want to point these out on what they are. There's a below-grade utility underneath the back of the parking lot at the dress shop right here that comes out to the driveway easement. What this is for is just kind of underground trunk lines for utilities that would need to connect in at some point. And then there's another underground utility easement that runs across this single-family home lot. And we're not involved with this single-family home lot, so this isn't part of our plan. But there is an underground utility easement here. Whether or not we'll need to do anything there is still sort of TBD, but it's back enough from the property line that there's not really going to be any impact. It would just be dig a trench, bury some pipes or wires, and then cover it back up. So I think it's important for us to outline what these easements are and kind of what they mean in the context of the project in the neighborhood. So the proposed development. So, this is kind of the pretty picture part where we're going to fly around the site and show you what it could look like. So I think everybody knows where everything is, but, this is Winona Street running along the top here, and this is Route 1 kind of running along the side here. So, when fully developed, all of the dirt pits that are there now are going to be gone. We've got the right to go out and plant grass up until the time a building permit gets pulled to actually do something. Again, it's been sitting here for 14 years, so there could be some grass. We don't really know when that could happen. But so that's kind of what it looks like from kind of the top-down view. This is if you're up in the air over Route 1. You can see the honeydew down on the bottom right of the screen, and you can see the restaurant on the bottom left-hand of the screen. And so again, you know, if the pool hall building isn't fixed up and maintained, it's gone. The retention pond gets filled in. There's an ability to come landscape this whole thing. And so kind of that public view from Route 1 gets to get fixed because we were able to pull down this beautification easement that we put together with the other property owners and solve a larger problem for the site and try to take care of some of these things that have been built in for 14 years. This is an aerial, so now we are looking roughly to the south. We're just about over Winona Street right now, where the chain link fence would be kind of at the bottom of the screen as you'd look up onto the site right now from Winona Street. And so this is kind of the aerial view of what that would look like. Now we are over Cardigan, and this is looking towards the east. So Winona Street would kind of be off to the left of your screen. Huntington Woods would be off kind of to the right of the screen. And Route 1 would be sort of back here, and the dress shop and the donut shop would be over here. Again, you'll see there's a big recreation areas outside, a fair bit of grass to try to landscape the site, and trees and plantings. Just another view of the outside recreation area. This is the middle building. This is going to be kind of the clubhouse, gaming, business center, those types of things. This is looking to the east from about the middle of the property on the west side of it, so on the Winona Street side of the property. This is a view of the street view from the driveway out at Route 1. And so you can see off to the left that this is the restaurant right here. And I guess kind of behind you to the right, if you were the photographer here, would be where the donut and the dress shops are. And so again, this is that driveway that would take you back to the site. And it's all cleaned up. This is a view, so this is the emergency ingress and egress off of Winona that would be access restricted. Again, subject to working that out with the fire chief, but I know that that's done on other properties, so I don't expect a problem there. We need to nail down exactly how this is going to get landscaped, but we expect that we'll plant trees and grass and really try to make this a very nice entry so that, from the street realm down on Winona, right now there's a small little retaining pond there with the chain link fence. And so again, really just trying to make the views from off property, as green as possible. Let me walk you through this. This is kind of hard to do. So we did the best we could on this one. This is what it looks like if you look from Winona Street right now up to the site. And so that's the trees that are there. I'm not sure. This is the first house on the left. I don't know the name of the person whose house this is. I'm sorry. And then what we did is down on the bottom right here, we superimposed, and it's behind these trees, but we superimposed what the building massing is just to kind of give you an idea. And again, it's a little hard to see. I'm sorry we couldn't come up with a better way to do this one. But the trees are there, the vegetation is there, and the buildings, as you'll see, from Winona Street, the buildings are going to appear lower than those trees because the trees are closer and they're pretty big, tall trees. So, again, a lot of this is going to be hidden by the existing foliage and the growth that currently exists on the property line there. Yes, ma'am.
That's true. 6 months a year. Right now, it doesn't look like that. No, it doesn't.
Okay. Yes, sir.
How far away from your building to that back fence is going to be 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet?
It's in the 80 to 100 foot range, plus or minus, depending on which home.
So we could basically have breakfast with that. From my foundation of my house to the foundation of that 4-story building, it's 158 feet.
158, yeah.
And that includes cars parking in between those.
So what happens when the cars come parking and even in the summertime, the lights are gonna light up my bedroom?
Well, so that's one of the things that we can work out. And so we can put a fence down the entire side of the property. It can be brown, it can be white, and it can be a continuous fence so that it'll block all the light. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do there. There's plantings, there's landscaping. There's a fair bit of ways to treat that, and we've done it in other communities in the past. Yes, sir?
Do you guys currently own the Bill Ricker property?
No, we don't right now.
Okay, so you developed it and then sold it?
Yes, sir, that's correct. On that one, that's what we did.
Andy, another question?
Sorry, yes, ma'am.
Pardon?
Why can't you push the building, push it on? If you're gonna do all that work to take down the billiards place, make it green, white.
We can't buy that property. So the property that's available is the piece that we've got here. The other portion, let me skip back a little bit. The question was, I believe, whoops, I promise I can do this. I think your question was, why can't we go over here? And this isn't available, so we can't do anything here. The property line of the piece that is available to us is kind of runs, plus or minus kind of in this range. And so, we've pushed, we've really been, and we're still kind of, everything is a work in progress until you build it. So, but we're trying to pull towards the east as much as we can in as many places as we can. Yes, sir.
I'm at 8 Cardigan Road. My name is Kevin Barrett.
Yes, sir.
This is my wife.
Oh.
You've seen these presentations before, and I think one of the things that I think gets lost in this is the views from Cardigan Road, from those neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
And, as my wife said, that building, I've asked several times to see if that building could be rotated so that it wasn't sitting like right in front of us or, moved right, left or something. But those are the kinds of things that we had hoped to see tonight.
Well,
and
I think really the next step in the conversation is sitting down and getting very detailed about where you are, where the massing is, and trying to think of buffers and other tools. And that was kind of I think Joel made reference to that. We feel that's probably the next step because everybody's going to have different priorities and concerns. We have a bag of tools. It could be garages, it could be fencing, it could be berms or plantings. There's a lot of options out there.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the plans and, you go from 25-foot buffer essentially from parking to property line at the front, at the beginning of Cardigan. And when it gets to my house at number 8, it's about 3.5 feet to where the property line is to where the parking stops or the garages stop. So there's no buffer. So those are literally in my backyard.
Right.
Well,
We're 6 Cardigan, we're right next to it.
yeah, I mean, again, what we need to be doing now is sitting down in more detail, and it's just a level of detail we can't get to at this stage. I understand perfectly what you're saying. In the end, it isn't quite on top of you. It isn't 3 foot off, but it's nonetheless, it's something that we understand it has to be addressed. We're very, very clear on that. Yes.
So I just want to say, so, we've got time ticking, clock is ticking, time is moving forward, we've got deadlines to meet, and we're still at the very beginning. We've already seen this, and nobody has reached out to say, hey, we want to find out how we can fix this to make it work.
That's correct.
But here we are, a year later, right, or since October, and we're seeing the same thing that we saw before.
It's correct that we have not been going directly to abutters based on feedback from the city that they prefer that this is a transparent process where we made a presentation. The next step really, and frankly that's tomorrow morning, I'm fine with it, is to start talking to people directly, and not even direct. There's people on Anderson and Winona that aren't direct but also are impacted, and they're going to want to have a say on things, and that's what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at this as a ball game, I mean, we're kind of in the batter's box is where we are at this point, and so, I think there was 20 people here in October, 20, 25, somewhere in that range. I think we had, I don't know the exact number, I think we got 80-ish people here tonight. We've been able to address a number of the concerns that were brought up. So, what we wanted to do is come out and kind of get a broader audience so that then we can follow on and go sit down and meet with you and hear what your concerns are and then see, all right, we get it, let's see what we can do and then try to go solve some problems. And so that's part of the process. We just need to get to it. So, so we're getting there. I think he was next, I'm sorry.
Where are you going to hook into the sewage system?
It's a good question. So we think
that we're gonna be hooking onto it through Winona and down a ways to Winona.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like, but we have not met.
I
with
think it's
town
probably
department
here,
heads.
but I'm not, we've got to go meet with the engineering department, which we haven't done yet. Yes, sir.
Either of you gentlemen live in a house in the neighborhood like we have here, all single-family homes, and then this project is thrown in the middle of it? You know the economic impact that's gonna have on people here? I mean, I don't see my house value going up by putting in this project. And listen, I'm sympathetic to people that are of less means, okay? But if I wanted to live in a neighborhood that had this kind of housing, I'd still be in the city of Boston. I got out of the city of Boston so I could move over here and have peace and quiet. This is not a peace and quiet project. I was ticked off when it was 12, 13 houses. When they told me it was 240, I'm off the rails with this. I live at the end over here on Corral Road, and I could see where that little patch is, and they're talking about making that an egress.
Well,
It's not an egress. It's
Okay,
not.
but you said that's to be determined. You didn't
No,
exactly.
let me go
You said
back.
they're gonna do something there, it's yellow, there it is.
This piece,
Yellow?
this is so the yellow is a utility easement, and so
Yeah.
there might be a couple of underground things that have to go in there for utilities.
Okay.
But this is a single-family home lot. That's what it's zoned for. We're not doing anything there. There'll be no driveway there. The driveway can't connect. The only right we have is, it's specifically an underground utility easement. That's all that's there. There's no other way to do anything.
That piece is not.
My heart breaks for anyone that lives on Cardigan, because they're backed right up to it, and that, let me tell you, that's a big project. That's a big project, and that's a big pill to swallow. I like to know what the economic impact on any of these projects you've done, on any of the houses surrounding those projects, and what kind of values and how it affected them. I'd like to see some of that data.
Can I just make a
Not this.
recommendation? Let them get through the presentation, because there were about 50 people who didn't see it, and I respect them letting you hear, and I appreciate that, but let the people who are here, let them finish, and then do the Q&A then, just so we can get through it, please.
So how do I do this? I think I just click, and then I click again, right? So the other thing that I don't remember if this was Joel or the mayor that asked us to put this together, but they asked us to put together a kind of a shadow study. So this plays a little video. So this is kind of, March 21st, which is, the spring equinox. Let me see if I get this right. Yeah. So again, the sun's rising and then it sets, and so you can kind of see what that does. And so this is June 21st. And then, oops, sorry. And then this is September 21st. And we just kind of picked the four quarters. Oops, sorry. And then this is December 21st. Sorry. So it's just as the sun comes up, so the sun's rising over here, it's passing across the property and it's setting. So just kind of seeing, what the shadows, of all the homes in the neighborhood are. It's a little hard because there are trees here. We can't model those, but so primarily the shadows on these buildings are going to be falling on the eastern edge of the trees that are there. So, we can get these slides out to folks if you want to watch them again. They're kind of hard to, you kind of have to watch them a couple of times. And then these are just stills. Tim, if you want to talk a little bit about, Tim is our civil engineer from Allen & Major Associates, and I know the last time we were here there was some questions on kind of how that works, and so I don't know how that works because it's not what I do. So I thought I'd let Tim just tell you directly.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Tim Williams. I'm with Allen & Major Associates, and we have looked at the stormwater out there, and I would appreciate any input you guys can give me as we work through the stormwater design so we can alleviate any concerns you have. Before I dive into it, the City of Peabody has a stormwater ordinance. It follows all the DEP standards, all 10 of them. We have to treat the stormwater for both quality and quantity. We have to mitigate the stormwater that runs off the site from the 2-year storm to the 100-year storm. So we're in the process. We have a good understanding of what the existing conditions are like, and right now we have pen to paper back at the office putting together how we're going to mitigate this stormwater to best keep all the stormwater on site as we can, without directly impacting the abutters and alleviating any problems that you have based on the stormwater that's running off the site right now. So this is the existing conditions of the site. The site essentially drains at 4 different points. It runs back toward the abutters lot, and it runs down toward Route 1, and there's a portion of the site that runs both north and south. Oops. As well, the existing easement, as Andy had mentioned, there's stormwater that runs down through that driveway and will, in the proposed condition, I can't get the red light to work, runs down, and there's one catch basin down here at the end of Newbury, at the end of the site drive at Newbury Street. So we need to come up with a way to mitigate the proposed driveway that's going to run up for the site to alleviate any stormwater. The DEP Mass Highway is going to have concerns about any of the stormwater running off this access drive into Newbury Street. So we have to work with both the city officials on the stormwater, City Services Department. We also need to work with Mass DOT on the stormwater. This is the proposed stormwater plan that that went as part of the project eligibility letter. So, as part of the project eligibility letter that went into the mass housing, it's really somewhat of a conceptual, this is what we want to do plan. There's really no hard engineering behind it at this point until mass housing gives us the green light and says you are now eligible to go in front of the Peabody ZBA and to present your project to that governing body regarding all the different aspects of the site, whether it be traffic, the number of units, the heights of the building, how we manage stormwater, how we work with how we're going to manage our utilities. So we're not quite at that point yet. We haven't got that project eligibility letter yet. As it was stated by the mayor, you've extended it to May 7th. Once we get the green light, then we have the ability to go meet with the city departments, find out how they want us to manage the site, where are the problems off-site, is there sewer capacity, is there water capacity. We meet with the gas company, we meet with the electric company, and then we manage our stormwater. So the intent is up on the portion that Trammell Crow has control over is to infiltrate as much stormwater as we possibly can without having it, again, break out maybe on some of the lower elevations along the abutters property. So what we're showing right now is some underground infiltration areas and some bioretention areas that we could possibly incorporate into the site. So we're still in that phase. We still have to work with the geotech. We have to get an understanding of what the underlying soil conditions are. So as Andy said, we're still in the batter's box, but we're here to get all the feedback we possibly can from you guys. This was a record plan of the former Race Drive subdivision, and what they had proposed to do was to manage their stormwater on site, but they also were proposing to add a drainage line to connect back to Moulton as part of their overflow. And that may be something that we may need to consider, but again, we'll work with the city and we'll work with the abutters on what we could possibly do there. This didn't quite show up correctly, but
click the button a couple more times.
Oh, okay. So in the parking lot, when we talk about how we're going to manage our stormwater, we're going to really try and implement low-impact development strategies and best management practices. So these are typical sort of bioretention areas that would capture the stormwater. What we want to try and get away from is catch basin to manhole to pipe to the municipal system. So the intent is to keep all the stormwater on site. This would be what we would do is we would capture the stormwater in the landscape islands and treat it for quantity and quality. Again, this is another example of a bioretention area in a landscape and island. Same with this one. Again, bioretention areas. Andy talked about the Winona Drive connection and what we're going to do there. Well, that's a good opportunity for us to implement again, some bioretention areas where we use the underlying soils to treat the stormwater for quality and quantity. We will be, obviously we're going to need to introduce some underground infiltration systems into the site. We've worked on a number of these projects over the years, both 40B and regular by right. And of course, stormwater outside of traffic is always the biggest concern. But this site lies, a portion of it lies in both the surface water and the groundwater protection district. And we're required to put our stormwater back into the ground there for the benefit of your wells in town. So these are means to get that stormwater from the site, from the paved surfaces, from the roof, cleaned and back into the ground. So I want you guys to rest assured that we hear your stormwater management concerns. We see the site, we see that big detention pond that's out there. The intent is to manage all that stormwater on site, clean it up, treat it for quantity and quality. And again, we have to work with the city. We have to utilize the Mass DEP stormwater standards, which will hold this site to a higher standard. So I'm pretty confident that we'll get there. Again, when we go through the ZBA process, I'm assuming, which is a safe assumption, that we'll go through a full peer review of the project, where our work will be critiqued and we'll have to address questions and comments. But again, as we go through this process with all the abutters, any stormwater management questions or concerns you have, we're welcome to hear them so we can incorporate those into the design plans.
Hi, my name is Frank Mayo. My father built the house in 2002. It's the house to the left of the emergency driveway.
Okay.
Right? 14 years ago, when they first planned on selling all the property, a contractor who was interested in the property came to my father. He said he was going to buy his house to make a retention pond down there, because once they stripped that land, all the water was going to go there. And raise it up. You claim, I don't know if you're aware of this, but that mound wasn't always there. Marchese brought in 1,000 truckloads of clay, so there's no drainage there.
Right.
That's not the dirt that was there originally. My father died with a broken heart because he built his dream home there. The pool hasn't been used in 14 years. If you go by the house, take a peek in the backyard. We get water there. There's a wall by the pool that's about 3 feet high. The water comes up that high. We haven't been flooded since they put those retention ponds in. We still get a little water in the basement, but I mean, my whole backyard is all silt. You know, it's got, I need to know that you're gonna do something with that property. How can you guarantee that I'm not gonna start flooding again once you start taking away the retention pond? You know what I mean?
multiple retention ponds back.
Oh, sure, no, I understand. It's also completely clear cut too, as well, so the soils aren't able to infiltrate stormwater. But again, we have to go through this whole process with the city. And again, it's gonna be peer reviewed.
I go through the process with the city too for 14 years. You know what I mean? Good luck. But this green area you have, now one of the reasons why I know you can't move your property up to that, because that's commercially zoned, right? Is that why, or it's just not for sale? Because I know the whole, he's had multiple people make him offers on trying to buy the property, and he always backed out on it. He said, my father's had him in court, my father died with him in court, trying to sue him for damages and stuff. He had multiple names of LLCs. You can't even find this guy. I had to find people that knew him to get him served with subpoenas, because we couldn't find an address for this guy. But he's backed out of so many projects that people had. They wanted to put a bowling alley there, an AMF up front. It would have helped things, you know what I mean? And then he would back out. I feel like he did this on purpose. And it's not the first town he's done this in. He's done this in other towns where he started projects, cleared everything out, and filed bankruptcy. You know, so I mean.
And what happened to your father and what you're having to deal with? It's not right what happened 14 years ago.
Absolutely not.
And there's something. The only way to fix it so that you don't have to have constant water concerns is something has to get developed. And
absolutely,
the land was so screwed up, frankly, that the only way to fix it is. It's going to take a lot of money to fix it. 4
years ago, I went in and I was talking with Caruso, and he says, in April, the storage is going. That was 4 years ago, 5 years ago maybe, you know?
Well, and that's why we cut that deal where we can go, you know, I mean, it's not easy to convince somebody to give you a right to go on their property, bulldoze their building, kind of redo the thing and plant grass, but, you know, I mean, I don't want you to have to live next to that. You know, I don't want my residents in my community to have to live next to that. I mean, what happened here is, it's not right. It shouldn't have happened. It did happen. It's been a problem for a decade and a half.
Right.
And there needs to be a solution to fix it so that your backyard isn't wrecked. And, you know, Tim designs these. This is all, you know, he's a civil engineer for a living. It's all he does. He's got a big team of good folks that work for him. He works on all of our stuff for us. You know, as he said, that the city's going to hire a peer review consultant. The city engineer is going to have a look at it. I mean, this thing is going to be the most handled set of drawings you've ever seen in your life to make sure that it's done the right way, so that there aren't problems, so that when it gets done, you can finally say, hey, I got my backyard back. And that's part of one of the reasons that Mark wants to get together and I want to get together with you, so that we can say, hey, how is this impacting you? What are the concerns? Because Tim needs to know those things so that as he's designing his system, he can make sure that we incorporate this stuff. And we can't learn it if we don't talk to you.
Right.
And we needed to get through this meeting so that we can then come talk to you. So, but thank you for sharing. So, I know there's a bunch more questions. Should we just rip through? We've only got a couple slides left.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
You keep saying accessing other people's property. Who owns the other two properties? Are they not the same person?
No, they're not. So this piece here, roughly, is owned by Richie Marchese, who's the guy that cut everything down in the first place. And then this piece here is owned by another man named Ralph Caruso, who owns Race LLC. So this is Race.
Benefits from this, and you going on this property.
Well, but this guy doesn't. So but to get a use restriction, but regardless, it's still, there's a benefit that happens by fixing all of this stuff. I think, I hope everybody agrees. I think there's I hope that there's a benefit that, you know, getting rid of certain uses that can no longer go along this section of Route 1 are beneficial for folks. So,
Well, it's beneficial to who owns it too, because they can sell it.
we hope there's a lot of benefits, yeah. So, so this is kind of an overview of kind of the dollars and cents aspect of it.
If we could just close this up.
So we're almost done, I promise. So, you know, as far as the fiscal impacts to the town, you know, in between real estate taxes, building permit fees, excise taxes, sewer connection fees and whatnot, it's about it's $7.5 to $8 million of revenues that will flow to the town, kind of over a 10-year period of time. So, you know, that's sort of what that looks like. This is a tricky one. Sorry. The residential piece that we're talking about is this piece back here. This may get developed as storage. It's an as-of-right use, so it doesn't require any approvals. You literally draw it, go pull a building permit, and you can start building. So that's what that is. And then this also allows similar type uses, and this is the driveway that comes down to Route 1 right here. You know, and so I don't know. I don't control this piece, but you know, if a storage building gets built, here's a storage building that the gentleman that owns this built in what city is this, Mark? Revere. Sorry. So this is a similar building that was built in Revere that could potentially go here. And again, it doesn't require any approvals from anybody. You just draw it and go pull a building permit, and you can start building. So you know, again, we'll see, but you know, I think the intent here is to try to go in, treat the whole site as, you know, there's something with the land that a past wrong that was done that needs to be righted. So trying to figure out how to come up with a solution to fix that problem, create a screen from what will be commercial development eventually out on Route 1. And then, you know, I think at this point our presentation's over and we'd be happy to discuss. But, you know, the picture to the left, this is kind of the top-down view of what's there today. So again, you've got Winona Street and Cardigan here, Route 1 off to the right, this big retention pond, you know, the water damage that we were just talking about right here. And then off to the right, you know, the pool hall removed or fixed. the big retention pond filled in, these other retention ponds dealt with, and then some greenery put in to kind of green this whole place up. The gated, restricted emergency access off of Winona here with landscaping and trees on it to improve the pedestrian view up onto the property there as well. So that's it, and we're going to open it up for questions now. Yes, sir.
So you said you currently don't own the building or property?
Yes, sir, that's right.
So you developed it, you sold it. At what point did you sell it? 100%?
It what?
At 100% complete, 50% complete?
No, it was a completed building. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a group of us went up and talked to the builder of the residence, and there was a lot of stuff that they said that was promised that never came through. So is that on you guys or the owner?
You take it, Mark.
I'd be interested in who those people are. We actually had 40 abutters, and part of the project was that we introduced a whole new sewer main up Alpine, which everyone had the right with us to connect. It meant collapsing septic, and then there was quite a bit of landscape work that was addressed with each property owner individually.
So that landscape that you're discussing right now, I personally talked to 3 abutters, and I had pictures of their resident that they are looking at, and none of the landscaping in that was promised.
Well,
It is there, they can see directly in, they were promised 20-foot trees.
well, I can tell, I don't know who you're speaking of, but we could discuss that. I can tell you they all signed releases when the work was done, so they accepted the work. If they didn't sign a release because they're unhappy, they signed a release because they accepted the work that was completed. So I can't speak, I mean,
We had to post a bond with the city to do everything that was required to be done with that project, and the cities don't release bonds unless all of the work is done and signed off. So I don't know who you talked to or what the circumstances were.
And there were 1 or 2 neighbors that we resodded them 2 or 3 times, and for a range of reasons, things didn't set. And with those people, again, we negotiated a release, which they executed. I mean, we can talk specifically about them. I can go through the records.
Well, I'm just saying, everyone says we'll take a look at the property.
Yeah.
You guys have not, we did.
Yeah.
And we reached out to the neighborhoods and.
About 3 people apparently aren't, but they signed releases, so they were at the time, and now I guess they aren't. But, again,
See, that's our concern as a butters. What if I'm one of those 3 that aren't happy?
Well, but you're not.
No, I could feel peer pressure to sign a release. So that's what we're concerned about. Am I going to be that one person that you made a promise to and it doesn't work out for me? So,
Well, if we're going to make a promise, we're going to deliver on that promise. We're going to iterate what that promise is so that everyone understands what that is. If it's 3 20-foot trees, as an example, there are going to be 3 20-foot trees, and if one of those trees dies, we're going to replace it, within the warranty period. That's what's going to happen. And so I don't think you should be intimidated. You should obviously speak your mind, be clear on what you want. Everyone's going to have different things that they find important to them. I mean, some things will probably be broadly applied, like fencing, berms, and other things. Someone might want some hedgerows, someone might want trees. That's all part of the conversation. But in the end, it'll be iterated. You're going to see what we've agreed on. I'm going to see it. We're both going to move forward on that, and it has to be done. If it doesn't get done, there'll probably be some structure with the city that we won't be able to proceed.
So I guess my question is then, we negotiate, and my other neighbors negotiate, and you're going to give me what I think I need or what you think I need?
Well, it's a negotiation. I think it's a conversation. I don't know what you need right now.
We're just going to try to come up with practical solutions that work. And so, and I think part of that is having an opportunity to sit down and look at plans and, meet with you. And I mean,
Just a quick question, you might not know this. You own a lot of properties and developed a lot of properties across the United States. What percentage of those do you retain ownership of?
The firm right now, we own about 20,000 units right now. We own about 20,000 units right now across the country.
When you say units, is that is 1 unit or is that?
No.
No, so so that would be,
I'm not used to your language.
it would be about about 100 communities, is that right?
Yeah,
About 100 communities.
And in the past 10 years, how many communities have you developed?
Considerably more.
More, yeah. I
Considerably
mean,
more.
we build them, we'll own them for a while, and at some point we will sell them. So it's, mhm. Yes, ma'am.
That's a good, so at the last meeting in October, you know, as I think the mayor said and Joel said, you know, we kind of walked in, we did not know how much of an issue Winona Street was with the traffic. We didn't. And, you know, pretty much in the middle of that meeting, it became eminently clear it was a problem. And we said, you know what? We're not putting traffic on Winona Street. We do think that there's going to be some emergency, you know, life safety requirements. We haven't even vetted that out. We've not had meetings with the department heads yet of the city. So the main brunt of the issue, which is a lot of traffic coming off our property going on Winona via that emergency access, that's off the table. It's not happening. It's a great question, though, about residents going through the Honeydew lot and the Ultimate Dress Shop. That's what it's called. Sorry. And we've heard that that's a concern, and I understand because, you know, people will just do that. The conversations we've had with the city, and again, we haven't met with department heads, but the feedback we're getting is that they would look at traffic prevention measures like no left turn out of the parking lot, which would then be enforced. And I think with enforcement, people would figure out really quick after a couple $100 tickets, that's not a good thing to do.
So, you know, as part of the process to do one of these projects, we will hire a traffic engineer who's going to do those studies and do the math on it. We're not at that phase of the project yet, so this is kind of, again, it's still very early stages. So we do need to do that analysis so that we can follow up and get you a good answer for that question. Yes, ma'am. Again, I think.
I don't know where your other facilities were built, but I don't know if it's feasible in a situation like this. It's like just plugged right down in the middle of, there's no in and out.
So, well, again, we'll continue to study that, and we'll have the reports to share with you a little bit longer, a little further along in the process, so that you can see the data to see, what the traffic impacts really are. And we've been involved with a number of these communities, and not everybody leaves home at the same time. People's schedules are fairly different, frankly, and so it's not that worst case scenario that you're imagining. So, but I understand the concern. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, I live a little further up north up on Route 1 at a development, 300 units. And there's never, it's right on Route 1, and there's never any problem getting in and out. Nobody leaves at the same time. There's never any traffic going in and out. I mean, there's no, I can see there's a little relief that there won't be a traffic jam of people pulling in and out. But I could see a problem with people using Winona Street. That little corner right there by 16B Winona Street needs to be fixed. You come up over that hump, cars come around the corner on the wrong. I was in a head-on accident there when a girl come up over that on the wrong side of the road as I was coming up Winona Street. That needs to be fixed. If anything, you work with the city to fix that little hump there. You can't see when you're coming around that corner.
They can't fix it. That's for, can't touch.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a story.
Yes, it is.
You know what's dangerous? Oh, that what? Yeah.
We've got a question over here, please.
So I'm quite impressed by the photography that you showed us of all your investments and all of that. I think between architecture, design, and Photoshop, it's remarkable. That being said, this looks like a plantation to me, which I know it isn't. So I'm not too sure how accurate your imagery is. Also, I think you have not really thought it out as a human being as to what is in this. You're in it for investment, which I can understand. But with all the land in the United States and in Texas, why do you have to come here? Leave us alone. Let it rot. I don't care what you whatever. Just let it be. I mean, if
Thank
you're
you.
telling me the investment is going to be so costly and so detrimental for you to put in all these water pumps and whatever, I just hope you have good insurance, because there has been so many issues in the past with people having their homes damaged because of water. I don't think you have enough homework to do by May 7th. Also, I think you should stick around and try to get on Route 1 from Winona Street between 7:30 and 7:45 in the morning. It takes me somewhere between 3 to 6 minutes to get on to Route 1. Why you have to put a zigzag for a line for people to get on Route 1? The quickest way is a straight line. Why do they have to zigzag to get onto Route 1? According to this design, what is the purpose of that when you can't just go one straight line?
Oh, it's where the easement is. So I think, sir, you had a, sorry. Yes, ma'am.
So it seems to me that I think you're talking about your investment, which is wonderful, but I think it's affecting more than you could possibly know. And I don't think you would like the sun not to rise in your backyard anymore because of this.
Thank you. Yes, in the back, sir.
How many units are you proposing right now?
It's 220 homes.
So if you reduce it, let's say to 150, that would help somewhat the traffic or the congestion. Would that be a potential
I mean, just study it. I don't think it works.
We'd have to look. I don't
We
think-
can look. I don't know if if it supports it. So. No, it's so. There's a to go do the site package to fix the site. It kind of costs what it costs to go fix it, and so if you don't have enough stuff to stand behind it and support it, you can't afford to fix all the problems, and then the homes that are there still keep getting flooded. So those problems don't go away. And so, again, there's a 17-acre problem here, and we're trying to come up with a way to fix that problem so that these drainage issues can go away, so that the people who live across the street on Winona, who live next door on Winona, who live on Cardigan, who have, you know, muddy water run into their yards during rainstorms, cannot have that happen anymore. And the engineering to do that it's pretty complicated. You know, I think Tim just kind of touched the iceberg on what it takes to do it. But it does take enough to be able to put it together and make it all work. So it was a good question. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes, sir.
Full name, 16 Hammond Road. Thank you, Paula, for this question. So I just want to kind of set a couple of things straight here. The property you're proposing was bought from Marchese, is it?
Marchese, Richie Marchese.
And Marchese also owns the adjacent property where the water retention runs, correct?
Currently, he owns this right here. That's what he owns.
And Ralph Caruso
Owns this piece, and then this piece.
established by Ryan that there's a interest, correct? All right? So I don't understand that you're proposing this and that you bought most of the property already off of one who already owns part of the property. Caruso has an interest in the rest of it. And if you really wanted to develop this correctly, why isn't the whole property involved in this, in the development? And being able to establish open green spaces. There is not a park for the kids anywhere near this neighborhood. I've grown up in this neighborhood. Pierce Road was supposed to be a park for that neighborhood. But back then, in 1960, they chose to build those two houses. All right? So I don't understand, because all the people interested financially in this property still own basically 2/3 of the property, which makes it just an investment to develop this. So it's ingenuous that the way you're proposing this. The access onto Winona Street behind the donuts, that should be totally closed off. There should be on Route 1, the traffic pattern, the whole lane should be open there, even if this was to happen, because getting on Route 1 off Winona Street is impossible from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And you think people aren't gonna go there? Forget about it. Coming down, we all know about what they call the jug handle, right? They're gonna come around, go down Lake Street, Lindauer's, is gonna be a speedway up to Winona Street, or they're gonna go down Winona at 5 corners. You know, there's so many different ways. It's a joke that you're proposing this on this big property when the other two landowners still have majority of the property. If this wants to be real, then make it real. Why isn't they selling that property, same owners with Ralph Caruso, because you know it's all gonna come back in the end, they're gonna sell it, you guys are gonna sell it. And it's gonna be, you know.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the question was asked earlier about a traffic study.
Okay.
It's somewhat disingenuous for you folks to come up here and say, this is our proposal, but we haven't done a traffic study yet. As has been mentioned, coming onto Winona Street, coming rather from Winona onto Route 1, you pass a gas station to your left, with cars coming on and off. Cars coming onto Route 1 from Winona will then have to fight with access and egress from your property, plus the morning traffic to the two donut shops and other establishments. Without an acceleration lane that was mentioned, acceleration lane, that is, there are going to be more accidents than are currently at that location. I can't understand why your comment to me was, or comment to this body was, you have not yet done a traffic study. It's unimaginable that you are proposing this type of property without having even thought about, tell me if I'm wrong, doing a traffic study before walking in here so you can give us the numbers, the realistic numbers, not 7 to 7:30, 7:30 to 8 o'clock. Enough of that. Give us realistic data that we can understand and
Right, so that's part of the process, and that's what we're going to get for you.
You're already too far into the process. You spent much money building your proposal, but you haven't done a traffic study?
We're actually very early in the process, and, you know, this meeting, this isn't actually part of a 40B process, this is a meeting that we wanted to have that Joel and the mayor and the other city staff wanted us to have, so that we could hear the concerns, that we could listen and see what the issues are, so that we can then try to figure out how to address those issues. And so, you know, in order to be able to do the traffic study, we need to get a little further down the path, so that we can then say, hey, traffic engineer, you know, here's the numbers that you need to analyze. And so it's coming. We're just not there yet. And as soon as we are there, then the information will be made publicly available. You know, based off of other projects that we have built, you know, we've got ideas on what that's going to be. You know, but until we hire the engineer to do the study on this one, and they do a lot of maps with arrows and numbers of cars and where they go and all that stuff, if you've seen one before. And so that will be available for you. It's just, we just need to get to that point. And so.
But additionally, as you mentioned also, you have two utility easements. The easement behind the donut shop drugstore will become, by human nature, that will become a driveway.
It
can't be.
It's underground, it's an underground easement. It can't be.
No, I'm not talking about, it'll become a driveway, that area, forget the easement.
Oh, okay. Right.
People will use that, regardless of the size, people will use that area to access Winona Street to go back towards West Peabody without accessing Route 1. It is of human nature to do that, regardless of fees and fines. So unless you're going to build a berm that limits that access road to only Route 1,
And
it won't work.
we
You
have,
cannot guarantee.
we've actually explored the berm. We don't believe we can do it due to the rights of the honeydew and the dress shop. But it's already something we looked at, because we kind of figured that would be the next step, that people would have a concern. We don't think we can do it. We're still looking at it. But
We're trying to see if there's a solution.
Honeydew has rights to
I understand that.
then enter into our drive space onto Route 1.
And you're also going to be impacting the business of both Honeydew and Dunkin' Donuts by dumping out 220 plus cars during drive time. During the morning and afternoon, the morning drive time, when they're doing most of their business, people driving to town to stop off. You're going to be impacting their time also, and their bottom line.
So it's something we'll continue to try and see if we can come up with a solution on. Thank you. Pick.
I live at 32 Winona Street, right across from Molten Road.
Okay.
And I'm not considered an abutter, although I think I should be, because I live on what I call Dead Man's Curve. And I'm constantly picking out pieces of cars on my property. Took me years to get it all cleaned up. But it's really sad that a proposal like this is being brought into this neighborhood. We've established our roots, our affiliations, and my husband and I are talking about moving and selling our property because of this proposal. And I don't know how many other people feel that way, but, you know, we're afraid of a decrease in our property value, our quality of life, because that traffic's gonna sit in front of my house. I won't be able to get out of my driveway. As well as when I'm sitting in my backyard on the deck, I'm gonna be looking up at these poor people, at these buildings. It's just gonna change. It's gonna change all of our quality of life. And it's a really sad state that I really don't think that's taken into consideration at all. I really don't feel that way.
Well, the reason we're here is so that we can try to figure that out. So I think,
I have a question.
okay.
I believe that on your original plans, and I might be wrong, the percentage was like 1.4, 1.5 parking spaces per unit, so there's 369 parking spaces. These are not inexpensive buildings and apartments to rent, they're not, which is both positive and negative, but they're not inexpensive. So I can foresee additional cars that will need to be parked besides 369, whether it's visitors, additional, you know, a one bedroom might have two people living in it, and et cetera, et cetera. Where do you foresee the
So-
overflow going?
So I hear the question, and, you know, the math of it is that, you know, we've designed the number of parking spaces that we've designed because that provides the number that you need for your residents plus a surplus that the guests would need. And so we benchmark it off of prior projects that we own in the company portfolios, because it's important for us to make sure that we build the right amount of parking spaces. And you want to balance that so that you have enough and then a little bit extra, but that you don't have too much, because then you're just building more parking lots, which nobody really wants. And so, I hear the concern, and all I can tell you on that is that, the reason the number of spaces is the number of spaces right now is because that's the number of spaces that will be needed based off of what's been needed at other similar properties in the past. There is, and I mean, that's really the answer on that one. So, and we can get more data and show it to you. So I hear it, it's a valid concern, and we can answer it for you. Yes, sir.
So, there's a water ban in Peabody right now, right?
There's,
There's a water ban because there's not enough water. With all the units that have been approved, roughly about 500 counting this project, how do you think that's going to impact us as citizens? Where are we going to get our water? Right now, we supply our own water. We have to go to MWRA. Now we're footing the bill for something that you want to build.
and so again, that's part of the process of going through this, is going to be meeting with the town water department, the engineering departments, and figuring out solutions to those issues. So it's part of the process to solve that. Yes, ma'am.
You talked about people's concerns, and you mentioned all the advantages that this development would be. What do you see as disadvantages for the city of Peabody? I mean, it's going to impact schools. I know redistricting is an issue, but water was brought up, the sewer. I mean, if it was your neighborhood, what would you see as a disadvantage?
Well, so in the town I live in, I actually voted for a project because I think it's a good project for the town. So, but you mentioned schools, and so when you look at these types of properties, and the mayor's office has all the stats on this, so you can reach out to them. But if you kind of look at it on a per grade level basis, you're kind of looking at about 3 kids per grade level in total. That's about the number of school-age children that live at a property like this. So that's kind of where that ends up, is about 3 per grade.
I mean, that just adds to the problem we already have. And, yeah, teachers, and get kids to school. And we're taxpayers, so we take pride in our property and all that.
Mm-hmm.
These people pay rent, not to discredit anybody for that, but it's not part of, you brought out all the wonderful things that developing that land will do, because you're going to take care of the people that are left. But I think there's a bigger impact for the city.
And that's part of the reason that we're talking with the different professional staffs in town, is to kind of understand what those are and figure out how to get solutions to them. Mm-hmm.
Yellow place where the easement is at the end of Corral Road.
Mm-hmm.
You said there's no egress.
The parking lot won't connect. There'll be no way, it's impossible to get in and out of there.
But who owns that one house lot?
I think it might be Ray's Peabody.
I don't know.
Not sure.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't?
No, I don't know who owns that one. Is it Marchese that owns that, I think, right? Yeah.
I think it's Ray's LLC.
No, I think it's Marchese that owns that one extra lot. I'm pretty sure.
He said he built a foundation years ago to live there.
And it's just, it seems like it's sat there for.
It's been there a while. But that's not part of what we're here to talk about. Sure.
Yep.
Folks, I'm sorry, if we could, I can't hear the question over here, so thank you.
If you had anything around elevations, because, where we are on Cardigan Road is like a, 15, 16 foot height difference.
We've done elevations, and I think we showed those at the last meeting. I think we, well, we don't know, and that's why we didn't want to show them until we have a little more certainty what that is. Again, if we have some feedback on buffering issues, then those can also be incorporated in the view line so you can see it a little bit better.
So I'm getting hungry.
Me too. Go do that.
So, how do we get to that next step? All right, so, like, to get into the nuts and bolts of what you're going to do, and how quickly can you do that? And when can we have conversations about all these things that we're talking about?
So I mean, I think we can start having conversations directly with you. You know, you are on the property line, so we actually want to meet with you on the property and look at it and walk it and talk to you and so, but, you know, because that's the way we're going to really figure it out, right? Is we got to go stand there and look at it. And, but we were asked not to do that until we had this meeting, and so it's.
But as a butter, this is more frustrating to me that I'm not getting the answers that I need to know to
Yeah,
make an informed decision.
and part of it was
Mark Casey.
Right.
He's a jerk. We all agree. It's now.
I'm not going to fight you on it. And I think, you know, part of it is we were asked to hold off and slow the process down a bit because COVID and all the nonsense that's going on in the world. And so, you know.
Before you run for...
So that gives us, how many?
Yeah, but not much. So, no, I hear you. But so the May 7th deadline, there's not a lot that happens on that one. Like just, you know, ask your city officials. Right, but ask your city officials. There's not much that actually happens there. And so, you know, it gives us some time to come meet with you, and we can start doing that right away. You know, the next public forum meeting it's probably 2+ months out, and it allows us to have an opportunity to then, you know, Tim and his team and the architects and the other folks and the landscape engineers all have to put pencil to paper to advance the drawings. And during that process, you know, we want to kind of come around, and it's really direct abutters that are on the property lines to figure out how are we going to treat that so that we can start making some decisions there. You know, we're going to talk to the elected staff, the city officials to get feedback from them. And so, you know, if people have concerns, that's another good way to get them to us. And so that we can start putting them into the drawings. And so we're here tonight to listen so that we can then figure out what else to do.
And look, I've drafted my 10 things that have to occur for me to support. So I want to be able to hear it and say.
We'd love to get it.
I'm good.
We'd love to get it from you.
There you go.
Thank you, sir. Okay. What was it, Ari? 60, the total cost I think that we'd put in there, was it $65 million, I think? Somewhere in that range. In that range, $65 million to build the whole thing. I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry. So the one beds are kind of $2,000-ish a month. The two beds are, I don't know, probably $2,500 a month in that range, and the 3-bedroom units are probably $3,000-ish a month. So the question was for the affordable units, what are the rents on the affordable units? Ari, could you bring those over? I don't have it committed to memory. Can you just bring it over? I'll have to get back to you on those exact numbers. It's 80%. It's based off of 80% of the area median income, and I'll have to look up. I don't have them committed to memory right now. I'm sorry.
Is the plan to leave the land at the height it is? You know, my brother said, you know, the house came in and brought in all those truckloads of dirt and dumped it and built up the height of that land, God only knows how many feet. So is the plan to leave it at the height it is? Because if you go up to the billions and back, all that flooding, that used to be level. You used to walk up to there on the road, and that was level, and then you go up a little incline. So is the plan to leave it at this height?
I would tell you approximately.
It's approximately.
We're moving material. I mean, obviously you want a flat site for your structures, but there's definite movement, obviously from Winona to what I call towards Huntington Woods. There's probably 15, 20 foot of grade change.
You look out my back window, my deck, and you go, and then it goes out to a mountain. You know, a mountain behind my house that wasn't there.
Okay. I'm not going to do that.
So there's already an emergency access road on the other side of my house. So you're coming out on one side of my house for emergency access road, there's always been one on the other side of my house.
Are you talking, sorry, just so I can get it right, this stand of trees here?
Yeah, there's an access road over there. There's always been an emergency access road there. Not that it's been used very often, but there was always an emergency access road there.
Yeah, when they built up the property, you can't get in there no more though.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think there'll be nothing that's able to be done here, I don't think, and.
That was supposed to be an access.
Right, okay, but this would be it now, and then it'll connect through across the site, you know, about like that, and so, you know, there's going to be really good emergency service access to be able to get around, so I can't imagine that that would be needed for anything.
Property that will abut my property still.
This piece?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
What can he do with that once all is said and done? Anything
There's zoning, it's zoned right now as business, and so anything that fits within the zoning designation within the business, he's able to do.
Except for the stuff you listed.
Except, right, we're precluding a bunch of stuff that he can't do, because we don't want that. We wouldn't think anybody else would want that either. So we're trying to make those uses, the potential uses in the future, go away. So, yes, sir, I think you had your hand up for a bit.
The 40B question again.
Mhm.
You people have already filed for the loophole for the 40B to bypass the city, is that correct?
Not a loophole.
It's a loophole, because it
No.
allows you to go, you just said it allows you to move forward without their authorization. Did he not just say that?
Subject to where the SHI is, where the 10% is.
Okay.
But we made the city very clear about our intents. We didn't just file this and tell no one.
Okay,
We were
but
giving
the
quite a
mayor, the mayor stood here and told us that his hands are tied. Once you file that and they approve it, that it's out of the city's hands, that you people are doing an end around to get to the
Well,
means you want.
I can just tell you, I'm not here tonight not reading to my kids so that I can do an end around. We're here tonight because we want to engage, we want to talk to you,
Okay, well,
we want to hear your
what
concerns.
people are
So,
telling you here tonight, do you think people are happy with this project? Your overall opinion, do you think everyone in this room are happy with this project being dumped right in the middle of their neighborhood? Because if you think they're happy, they're not. They may be asking you questions, some of them are very good, some of them are, they don't want this. No one wants the gentrification in their neighborhood. I understand what you're trying to do here, give people a place to live, but you know something? Everyone bought their homes in this neighborhood because they're single-family homes, and there's space between them, and there's not a lot of people around. It's a quiet neighborhood. This takes, it takes away from that, and I respect your position, I respect you coming here representing your company, I respect you, I respect the politicians. But me personally, I won't want this in my neighborhood, I'm sorry.
thank you. Yes, sir. Did you have somebody else?
I have one last question. The gentleman in front of me and several others have talked about the traffic problems there. And it's key to the whole approach of the concept. When will a traffic study be available?
Typically, that's done when you're in front of the ZBA, but I think we're hearing that this is something that people want more data on, so I think we'll release that. Huh? Yeah, no, it's very clear, so I think that's something we will release a lot sooner, I mean, in a couple, week or so, I mean, we'll get
Okay,
going on that.
it's something that we'll get working on for you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's an issue.
Right, they're not going to use the 2020 data. They'll go back and use the 2019 data, because the 2020 is just, you're right, it's garbage. So, sorry.
The utilities going into this building, is it going to key in anything on Winona Street? Because Winona Street, the sewage is old, I'm sure the water's old. I mean, the gas line is probably new.
So part of what we need to do to, right, so that's a good question. So, and, so in order to solve those with Definity, we need to start going and meeting with the different city departments, and we're not at the point where we're able to go do that yet. And so once we can go sit down with the water department and the sewer department and the other departments, we can figure out where they want us to tie into the infrastructure, if there's any infrastructure improvements that need to be made such that it'll work. So it's, the cities, if there's an old pipe and it's not going to work, they're not going to say plug into this old pipe. They're going to say, all right, well, here's where we want you to plug in, and this is the things that have to happen to the pipe so that it'll work. So it's a good question. It's part of the process so that you can get an infrastructure, that will support the development and work. So it is part of the process that Tim's team goes through as we're working through some of these issues. Understood. It does, yes, sir.
A lot of that's driven by the department heads, but, we understand that that's a preference.
Yeah, so we have to meet with the city sewer and water department, and they'll tell us where they want us to do it, and they'll tell us if there's pipes that need to be upgraded and improved, and those kinds of things. So, we hear you, and, we'll let those folks know when we're meeting with them that the preference would be to try to do it out on Route 1, and then it's just, they're going to call an audible on that and tell us where they want us to put those pipes and how they want us to put them in, and so that it works, because it's their system. That's right.
If approved by the state, do you intend to build what you are submitting to us right now?
I think there's a fair bit of changes that we can still make here, which is why we're here. We want some feedback. We want to come up with solutions that work for the neighbors. So, this isn't, the plan on the right there, that's not a final plan. That's where we are, kind of, mid-April right now, which is, we've still got a lot of drawing to do, a lot of design to do. So there's kind of a long road left here to figure this out. We did come and meet with the neighborhood back in October. This has kind of been a hard year for everybody, frankly, 2020, and we're almost there now, but we're not quite. And well, I'm just telling you the way it is, okay? So we were here in October. We've been meeting in town for a year now. Frankly, we could have gone a lot faster, but we've been trying to engage and trying to have dialogues. The reason we don't have more drawings than this right now is because we want to get more feedback before we release the design team to do more design and to draw more buildings, because it's an iterative process, and so you kind of get, blocks put together, and then you got to figure out where to move those blocks around and kind of how to do it. So that's the stage we're at right now. It's kind of early. We're trying to figure out where it needs to be, what it needs to look like, and how to make it work. And so I'm not dodging your question. I'm telling you it's creative design. It's kind of creative destruction. You come up with something you like, and then you say, all right, well, there's maybe a better way to do it. You move some stuff around, you look at it again, you keep trying, and eventually you get to something and you go, all right, well, that seems like a pretty good solution. So that's the process we're going through, and it's why we're here.
And I want to follow up with a question behind me. As far as the utilities,
Mm-hmm.
you have an easement on Corral, you have an easement through the parking lot, which you showed us earlier, for utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an easement on Route 1 for utilities?
So the easement, we can, where's this thing? So it's really going to be up to the city departments where they want us to put utilities. We can run trunk lines underneath this driveway. We have the right to do that.
You have an easement for that?
Yeah, we do. You can put utilities underneath this driveway. We have the right to do that. We have the right to put the driveway. We have the right to build the driveway, to pave the driveway, to landscape around it. We have all those rights. Again, it just really comes down to we've got to meet with the engineering departments, and then they're going to tell us what they want done. We don't really get a lot of say over that. We can suggest that we would prefer to be at Route 1, and then they're going to tell us what it has to be. So it's a good question.
Earlier, the two easements showed Corral in the parking lot.
Right, and the reason I identified those is I know there's been some questions about what the easements are around the property, so I really just wanted to put it on screen so that we could highlight what those are for everybody, so that there wasn't any questions about, is the easement that curves around back here, on the bottom southwest corner of the site, can a car go on that? And the answer is a car absolutely cannot go on that. So that's why we put those up. It's not that we know exactly where the city is going to tell us to put the pipes yet, but we wanted to be clear on what the easements were to try to help answer those questions for folks. Sorry.
Lighting and all that stuff that we can see for the butters,
Mm-hmm.
how that's going to be
lit up at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Please correct me if you already answered that question. Let's say you get approved to develop this property and you will sell it to an investor. Is there any clause that stipulates how you should sell it? Will you be able to sell it as owner-occupied properties where the percentage available to affordable housing or rental?
So once for 40Bs, it's kind of a technical legal question, but it's a good question, ma'am. So for a 40B property, when you go through the approval process, you designate if the units are going to be for sale units or rental units. And once you've gone through that, you then file an agreement that gets recorded, and it's an agreement with the city. I think it's with the city and the state, right? I think they're the two. So it's a three-party agreement the property owner, and it gets recorded with the land, and then the state and the city. And it's an easement, it's a document that goes against the land title, and they go for, some of them are 99 years, some of them are perpetual. If any of us are left in 99 years, we'll be doing really well. But it goes out for a long time, and it restricts it so that, for the balance of that 100-year period of time or longer, nothing can really change. It's sort of set in stone. It's going to be what it's going to be, so you can't make changes to what it is. It's sort of, you set it and that's it.
And then the affordable units are identified in an agreement with the state, and those are in perpetuity with the deed as well. So the units that are agreed upon as affordables are affordable.
And then annually, you have to file a compliance certificate with the state, and usually it goes to the city as well, that, you hire an auditing firm, and they basically audit the property on an annual basis, and then that has to get sent to the state and to the city for review to ensure compliance, that it's being done the way it's supposed to be. So it's pretty tight on how it works.
But you still have that limit for affordable housing and have the other part of the property available for owner occupied, right?
It would be rental. Yes, ma'am. It can't be changed. It's right. You can't mix. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think this whole project is hypothetical because you don't even own the property yet. Is this the way you always do business? And are all your other properties involving affordable housing? And my other question is, the three buildings, to me, they're not three buildings. There's a T shape, an L shape, and an indescribable shape. They will go up bigger than three buildings.
Okay. Well,
you want it?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm flaking on your question.
So the first one was, man, I had it.
What? The ownership. So pretty much most projects that we do have an option structure at this stage. And so the agreement is that we will buy the land subject to certain approvals, one of those usually being acceptance of the 40B process. That isn't exclusively the way it's done, but pretty much there's always an option structure at this stage of the game. And I would say that for any large development, commercial, residential, otherwise.
So we have a purchase and sale agreement to buy it, right?
And it's a binding document that if we do certain things and if the seller does certain things, if certain things occur, we will then buy the land.
Is that the way you have bought land?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That's every project we've ever done has been an option structure.
And the other part of the question is the size of the buildings. They don't look like three buildings to me. They look bigger than three buildings.
Well, they are distinct structures. They are separate buildings.
But they have L's and T's. They're not just one shape.
That's correct, yes. I mean, that, breaking up the massing is something we try and do. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
After listening to everybody here, having bought this property, have you ever gone back and said, this property isn't, you can go other places in Massachusetts and get the big rents that you're gonna get in an area that will be open to development. It's not gonna be such a travesty to the people that live in the area. Would you ever go back and say, you know what, I don't think this is a good piece of property?
Yeah, so
Just for what you have to go through. I know you don't care, and I know it's all about money, but, and the two gentlemen that you are doing business with aren't so desirable, so do you ever think, gee, maybe this really isn't the right piece of property and get out?
yeah, we've had projects that we've built and we've had projects that we haven't built, and so it really just kind of depends on the circumstances, and and it's why we try to work with the communities and we try to have engagement. We want to talk to the stakeholders because that's important to us. So.
Thank you. I hope to just go home and really think about this one.
Is there any reason why they won't sell the front two properties to you guys? I mean, if it's this profitable to you guys are investing this much, why won't you sell it? It's been sitting there for 15 years.
Well, this one, so I don't have any, other than I've got an easement with Richie, I don't have any business dealings with Richie. I've never met the man, I've never talked to him, I've talked to his attorney. So, well, No, we're not interested in buying this piece of land, frankly. So, and then this one, you know,
You're not interested in appeasing the neighbors behind you by moving the property forward 100 feet?
I can't buy this piece of land because it.
It's been sitting empty for 15 years.
Yeah, and then Ralph won't sell this one because it's approved for, you know, I think at some point he's going to build a storage building there. So, you know, so this one.
So all that green space that you show is going.
So I think, so that's, I can't answer that question for you. What I can tell you is that, you know, what you got out.
You just said you didn't speak to the guy on the left front.
I can tell you that he's got 14 years that he's owned, well, he's owned portions of it for 14 or 15 or more years. Whether anything happens here or not, you know, I don't know. I've got a decade and a half of historical data that would say eventually maybe, I don't know. And then this piece has been sitting around for a long time as well, and nothing's been done. And so, you know, the grass that we're planting is, again, it's in an effort to clean it up and fix it. You know, this isn't a piece of land that we have an ability to get under contract or that we're going to have an ability to buy, and neither is this piece here. And so, you know, what we're trying to do.
That storage building you brought up, you said that was in the works?
It's been in the works for quite a while. So,
So is he waiting, are they waiting?
In that grassy area right now, this picture?
Are they waiting for someone else to come in, do the dirty work, clean up the lot, so that he can come in and then build on it?
Correct. Excuse me, isn't the piece of property closest to Winona Street is owned by Marchese, right?
this piece here, right? Is that what you're talking about? It is.
That you're proposing to build on is also was, or it still is owned by that same person, correct?
It's not now, it previously was.
So, what my neighbor over there is trying to say is just like, why couldn't you buy both properties? It would have helped your situation a lot. We understand Caruso owns the other area in the front, but it would, if you could have made the deal, because right now you're making the road, you know, zigzag, because you're preserving that piece of property. For you to make this even a plausible deal, you should have worked out a deal to get all of these Marchese's property. And then you could have built off of Cardigan, created some more open space, real open space.
Emerging lane on Route 1, people going out of the building.
You know, that's the point I was making before.
Yeah, so for Route 1,
That corner, which is about a third of the property, and we bought that property, or buying that property of that same person that owns that property. And it doesn't smell right.
there's really nothing going on that, you know, so.
The only thing that's on that property is a big giant container pond. You might as well throw some gas in there so we can start fishing.
Is there contamination in that one?
On this piece of land?
Because he had.
There is.
There's
Yeah,
contamination.
yeah, he has
So
some
you couldn't
contamination
build on
here.
that? Would you have to cap that? He couldn't build on it, right? He'd have to
No,
cap
he
it.
can.
Can?
Yeah, he can. There's stuff you can do with it. I wouldn't put residential on it, but you can.
Who's maintaining the grass after you put it in?
It's a commercial property, so you can do, right, but this is, commercial is not residential. So,
Neither under 40B is it either. You can put 40B in commercial property.
yeah, but it's housing, so it's residential in the sense that it's housing. You know, the question was, is if the grass gets planted, who maintains it? Well, we'll probably go mow it, because it's gonna need to get mowed, and we're gonna wanna make it look nice. So we have the right to also go mow it. That's one of the other rights that we get,
You have
so.
a lot of rights to the other pieces of property, like we've talked about.
Mhm.
Race LLC owns the property you're buying, just to be clear,
That's correct.
who also owns the chunk to the left under a different name of Caruso. Marchese owned all of it at one time, still owns the rights to, let's say, 25%. Race LLC also owns the one-family home off of the end of Correct. Now, who's to say that, basically the way I see it is you're coming in, you're cleaning up all this property for them. You're gonna build whatever you wanna build, and then do they buy another piece of property? Because he already has a permit to build the storage unit that he has not done. So you could come in and buy more of the property down the road. What's stopping you from doing that now?
I've never built a storage building in my life. I wouldn't even know where to start, so.
He has a permit for that. There's a reason why he hasn't sold that yet.
And how is that going to affect your investment if you're charging anywhere from $25,000 to $3,000 a month
I built a building in, well, I built a building in Rentham that's right next to a storage building, and it worked fine. So, I guess I can say I've done it. I think my understanding is that this little piece off to the side here, I believe that Richie Marchese owns that. Race LLC, Ralph Caruso owns this piece right now. Through a different entity, Ralph Caruso owns this piece right now. And then Richie Marchese owns kind of this stuff right now. So that's kind of who owns what right now. I don't know. We are. Yes, ma'am.
Just going back to parking and the number of cars.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure, I know down at the Bill Rick website that you guys have, there is public transport, there is buses and train station very close.
A mile away,
The
yeah.
amount of, within walking distance, and you guys put a sidewalk in.
We actually, yeah, we built the sidewalk, yeah.
That eliminates a lot of people having to have their own cars because they move into complexes like this to have public transport. What's the solution in Peabody because there's no public transport in Boston?
Yeah, there's a few people at the Bill Ricca property that use the train, but it's not widely used. So I know we built the sidewalk there, but it doesn't get very much use, frankly. The property we built down in Rentham, the closest train station there is probably Forge Park, which is that 8 to 10 minutes away, I guess, something like that. And so, we've got data from both of those and a number of other properties across the company's portfolio. So, again, we can get you the numbers on it, but the number of spaces that we're looking at doing here, it's the number of spaces that makes it work so that it gets self-contained and dealt with on the property. I understand the concern.
I mean, just from somebody who used to live in a complex that was compact and never could find parking that I paid for within my rent, because of limited parking in the North Shore area. So just that's why I'm concerned that there will be some sort of spillover somewhere.
Okay, we'll address that in more detail. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
For the purposes of your lawyer, I just want to remind you folks, and the lawyer, this is 128 Newbury, not 16B Winona Street. This has happened in the past. This is not a Winona Street property. There's no direct noted access to Winona Street. And the first time we have issues of people coming off the property, when you build it, involved in an incident at the corner behind the building with the dough shop and the clothes shop, we're going to remember the fact that you said, yep, we'll put signs in, it'll be mitigated, we won't have a problem. You're already there. Remember, 128 Newbury Street, not Winona Street. Thank you. Thank you.
I saw another hand somewhere. Yes, ma'am.
Let's say this project doesn't go through. They can build, like you said, they can build whatever there. So my question to you is, if this project goes through, does that give them, is the deal that they can't build anything there?
No, it's so really all it does is there's things that they can't build there. So it takes a handful of things off the list that they would no longer be allowed to do through a use restriction that's, a use deed restriction that's now been placed on the property. And so I can put the list back up, but it was...
Adult entertainment.
Right.
Could they build it if you don't get the permit? Could they put that there?
Yeah.
Right now,
And they're
adult,
not restricted. They
like,
could put it back.
so for instance, adult entertainment right now is
The golden banana's going back.
allowed use with a special permit. Drug paraphernalia stores, so there are things that are allowed uses right now that would be removed from the list of allowed uses.
So that Winona Street exit, that emergency exit, that was never there till Marchese did that destruction to the property. That was put in. There was another access between the houses, smaller access.
Yeah, I think that was what the folks that were up, it was,
I mean, there's always been a road there because I lived there. Eventually that's gonna be open, the people are gonna be going in and out.
Well, no.
They're not.
That's absolutely not going to happen.
It'll be
Absolutely not.
part of the approval process is that it gets deed restricted so that can't happen. it gets built into the design and it's permanently deed restricted, and you just can't do it.
It's
So
gonna be bollards, it's gonna be a knockdown gate, it's gonna be something.
from having 4 kids myself, I can't stop my kids from doing a whole lot. But it won't be in a car, you know, they might walk over to go visit a buddy or something, but.
It's a scenic byway, right?
And every single one of those trees in front of my house, I live in 53, has been whacked, banged, and gone through my rock wall. Because it's a speed, it's a speed, they think they're on the Indianapolis 500 or something. It's horrible, it's a horrible speed. You're just gonna make it worse. 10 times worse. I've been to meetings now for the last 40 years. And this is always the same thing. They wanna destroy Winona Street. Make it a one-way.
So they've had the room till 8:30. I think they've answered most of the questions. I just want to bring up a couple of things for anyone who's also watching at home. As the mayor said, May 7th, I'm going to recommend reach out to the mayor's office with your concerns via email. Chris Ryder is here. Also, Kurt Bellavance. That's what you want to go through. I also have concerns too. I mean, I get at Dunkin' Donuts. I know there was some chatter earlier today about deceleration, acceleration lane. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the state needs to look at that. It's not really a city issue, but I think it's a concern. I go to that Dunkin' Donuts. I'm aware of it. And I'm also aware of the fact that, as I said, there's that back entrance to Winona off of Honeydew Donuts. A gate was never put up. I don't know why. I wish it had been. And then as you brought up just at the end, sir, as far as a one-way, as I said earlier, there are different feelings on that. I don't really want to vet that tonight, but some people are in favor, some people aren't. But the safety issue. But as I said, May 7th is important to get all your comments. Probably I wouldn't wait till May 7th to the mayor and to Kurt Bellavance. And we'll continue the process. If they have everyone's email who signed up tonight, they have cards here. You can get their emails, and they can talk directly. And then they direct the Abutters, as I said, at this point now, it's time for them to have those conversations need be. But I just appreciate everyone coming out, sharing your concerns, and just want to thank you all for taking time out of your schedule today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take it.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's why we want to.